these Anunnaki people, they said, okay, well, we're going to go to war then, because there's nothing we can do. You guys got to keep working. And then Enki says, wait a minute, I have an idea. There's an existing being on this planet, existing. We can add our essence to it. It's not really quite clear how they did it or what they did, but it seems as if they combined that with the genetics of one of these hominids, our cousins, and they made a clone, mixed hominid, somebody they can control. In other words, they can communicate with, they can teach to a certain level, they can get them to do the workload, they can instruct them and they would listen. So they made this clone version of hominid/Igigi, got it to work. They started making more in these Hathor birthing houses, which the Hathor birthing houses, like at the Temple of Dendera, the Temple of Isis, and all these other places, are there. They're still there. The structures are still there. I take people to see them every year. Now, what's interesting is these people, they couldn't produce babies on their own. They started getting frustrated because they weren't making enough clones to get the amount of workload done. They wanted them to reproduce on their own. Mm-hmm. And so that's when Isis says, I have an idea. I'm going to take the baby to term. I'm going to give birth to the Adamu. So she takes an egg out of one of the existing hominids. She does something with the DNA and the genetics inside the egg, what we call today making a zygote. She puts it in her room. That's artificial insemination. And then she takes it to term 10 months. And there's a cylinder scroll with her holding up the baby saying, my hands have made it, the Adamu. That means first man. So now we have the first genetically modified, perfected version of Homo sapien sapien. They tried to mate him with these other clones. Didn't work again. They said, damn it. So they then took some DNA from him, made a female, and then mated them together, and it worked. They said, we got it. So then they started making Adams and Eves in these birthing houses. Adam and Eve weren't the only two people on Earth. When they got here, there were already probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people already here, okay? And then what happens is, if you take two people and you think you're gonna get 8 billion out of two, it doesn't work. What happens if you start having sex with your sister?
Right.
And then she gives birth, and then those babies have sex with each other. You're gonna have genetic mutations, and by the third generation, they won't even be able to, they'll be dead, they'll be stillbirths.
Right.
Not enough genetic diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So they created Eden, E-D-I-N, and Enki, he was known as Satan, the Lord of Eden in the text. And he would watch over this Eden. He had guards with weapons to guard why would you have to guard this place with weapons? And he had people in there, and he was having mating times. They have specific times that they can mate and couldn't mate. And it was like breeding. And they were working on perfecting it. Enki came and told Adam and Eve who they were and how powerful they were and that they were the same level as them. That's when they realized that they weren't dumb. That was the apple. The apple was knowledge. And then Enlil comes back